Yeah. Hey, Krav Maga martial arts friends and family and tribe. I am excited to be back for another installment of Meditations on Mastery, our KMMA podcast here. And I have a very, very special guest with me today, Matt Kay.
Hi.
Matt, thanks for making the time.
Of course.
And in transparency, I'm going to tell you the three reasons I invited you, and then that'll let them know too.
Okay.
The one is because this is a leadership podcast, and I happen to know that you're a very, very successful business owner, and you have a lot of, obviously you've been very successful, and I know that nobody can get to that position without knowing some things about leadership, right?
Makes sense.
So that's the one reason I invited you. The second reason is you also happen to be one of the A students, like example students in our Black Belt Leadership Program. You and your daughter Sammy, and you've done that now as father and daughter for 6 months or so, or
a little more. We started in September.
Okay, awesome. So you'll be able to give some real good, opinions and impressions of that program and stuff. And the third, honestly, is that somebody keeps telling one of my students keeps telling me, "Man, you're building a tribe there. You're building a tribe, right?" And so and I think we are.
Yes.
I think we're building an awesome leadership tribe, and people like you and Sammy are like, I want more people like you in the tribe.
Thank you.
So those three reasons are the reasons I had you as the special guest today. I really, really appreciate you coming. So I'll start asking about the first. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about your experience, what it is that you do, and then we can kind of segue it into, the leadership lessons that you've learned and/or that helped you get there.
Okay. Real brief background, I guess. I've been in sales since '94, and I think it was around 2011 or so. My wife and I opened up a business selling medical supplies, built it from the ground up. Now we've got a bunch of employees. We're still a small business, but like you said, it's one of those things where, if you don't have any leadership abilities, you're kind of thrown into the fire to learn them and create them, or you're going to fall on your face.
Yeah.
But to be able to create something out of nothing, you have to get people to see your vision and follow you.
Yeah, well, that's great. And like I said, clearly we've never talked specifics about your business, but clearly you're very successful. Like you guys are
pretty well.
You guys are cruising all the time, right? Like he's every weekend that he's not here, he's cruising. And it's like so obviously you guys have done well. And so I think one of the things that's very, very interesting, there's a couple of things interesting about what you just said. One is so true, right? Like because let's face it, most people will start a business and fail relatively quickly, right? Like when we look at the statistics, only so many businesses make it even 5 years, and then lesser number make it 10 years, right? And so, that's one. And then two is, I like the thing that you're kind of thrown into it. You got to figure out the leadership lessons as you go along. So, which kind of segues into the second piece, because here you are now actually studying leadership, and,
yes,
and which I just wrote something today about the fact that we should all be both leading and learning to lead better all the time. Right. So what would you speak to kind of the correlation relationship between what you do in real life and our leadership program here and such?
I found not only maybe it's the getting older part, and wisdom that comes with it, but it's also leadership and training people over the years for positions at my company, that once you step into that role as a mentor and you like to see people succeed and you like to help people succeed, it kind of sticks with you. So that, even though I'm just learning Krav Maga myself now, and, I'm at the point where I know that I don't really know anything yet. If we fight slow motion, I might be able to win. But even still, I see somebody that is a little bit behind where I am, and I maybe know something that they don't, and I try to help them.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you want to become a great leader, you have to know what path they're going to need to walk down. So you have to learn how to walk somebody else's path first as a follower to learn how to lead.
Oh, that's great. That is great. And you hit so many things at one time there. The the humility and the lifelong learning, right? Like, and then like you said, that you have to be a good follower before you can be a good leader.
Yep.
And you actually alluded to the fact that, because I always kind of teach that in a more generic sense, but you specifically said you have to learn to be the guy that does each job you're going to train somebody else to do. That is great.
Yep.
That's brilliant business advice right there. You also hit on a principle, two other principles that I love from leadership. One, which is that, we know what we know. Sometimes we know what we don't know, but it's what we don't know that'll get us.
Yes.
So we'll come talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I'll talk about the latter one first, because it's easier to. You also kind of alluded to, I think it was Zig Ziglar who said that you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want in life.
I've never heard that one. That's good. I like that.
But you kind of said it, right? Because you talked about leading up all these people to be able to do. So and you said about helping them accomplish their goals. Right. So,
and I've also found along the way that when you teach someone else, it makes you focus on the correct steps and making sure that you have them correct to teach that person how to do it.
That's great.
So it helps solidify your knowledge base.
You have to raise your excellence that's great. I love that. So that other one about it's what you don't know that you don't know that'll get you. As now a successful entrepreneur who's, kind of made it to the other side, right? Like, what advice would you have for maybe other businesses, your businesses as pertains to that, as pertains to learning what you don't know?
I would say two things. First of all, take a deep and honest look at yourself. Everybody's got strengths, everybody's got weaknesses. And a mistake that a lot of small businesses make is just that they say, all right, well, I've got to be an expert in everything. And that's wrong. What you do is you focus on what your core strengths are. My core strengths happens to be sales and numbers. So I kind of work with that at the office. And the things that I don't know, rather than trying to become an expert at them, and in doing so, I'm going to waste time that I could be doing the stuff that I'm really good at for the business. What I do is I find someone that is their core strength.
Oh, wow.
Something that they know very well. Perhaps, a lot of people might know, like, for example, doctors, okay? A lot of them are really good at making somebody better, but they might not be a great business person. So rather than try to muddle their way through becoming a great business person, they find an office manager that knows business. They know how to keep everything running smooth and sailing straight. So all the doctor needs to do is show up, take care of people, make them better, and somebody else is handling the business aspect of it and helping that run through.
That's great.
And I would say the other part would be, like you had said earlier, a lot of businesses don't make it. And I think it's because they fail to plan. If you don't plan out and life throws monkey wrenches at you all the time. 3 years ago, not a single person on the planet would have said that we were going to be on lockdown for 2 years.
Right.
Man, you're crazy. What are you talking about? So, obviously the entire world's plans change,
right,
and you've got to change with that. Right. But if you're not planning your day out, planning your week out, planning your month out, you're going to get caught up in all the daily distractions. Some people say, it's, they can't work from home because they squirrel. You're like, all right, well, I'm just going to I'm going to have my coffee. And while I have my coffee, I'm just going to turn on TV for a few minutes, watch TV. And next thing you know, 3 hours later, you've watched Maury, you've watched the news, you've watched all the junk that's on TV during the day. And now 3 hours have gone by in your day and you've gotten absolutely nothing done but a 3-hour coffee break. So, once you can plan everything out, stick with your plan, but at the same time, be able to roll with the punches and say, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to do better?
Yeah.
or hey, this changed and that affects everything. Now I need to reassess my plan and change it.
Wow. That was a lot of awesome wisdom there. I am
Thank you.
definitely, yeah, thank you. I'll be listening to this one again. I feel very edified that I invited you, that I was astute enough to realize you would be able to share so much. Because I mean, honestly, there's a lot of stuff there that'll help me in my next evolution. I'm sure a lot of people listening to this, wherever they're at. In fact, I mean, I don't want to try to summarize all of it because there was so much wisdom that I want to go back and do it again. But you talked about planning, you talked about adaptability, and you talked a lot about focus, which of course is our first Black Belt leadership superpower. So that was kind of cool. But you talked about it from many different angles, right? Like because yeah, I think that's maybe one of the biggest challenges for the entrepreneur, right? Is that like if you work for somebody else, they kind of tell you what the priorities are most of the time, and I mean not that necessarily
Yeah.
I'm not saying micromanaging is good leadership, but still it's not the same as for those of us that have to, like you said, do the monthly, weekly, daily planning to make sure that we're making the best and highest use of our time. It's a whole nother level of focus.
When you're running the show, it's you've got to find that path through the jungle. Whereas, like you said, if you're working for somebody, you may still have to find the path in that jungle for them, but they're at least pointing you in the right direction. Hey, this is what we need to get accomplished. Go do that. When you're self-employed, even having a team, so to speak, with my wife and myself, where she knows aspects of the business that I couldn't tell you. I have no idea how it's done. But like I said earlier, she plays into her strengths, I play into my strengths, and together we kind of help everybody through that forest and find a path to get where we're going to be bigger and better tomorrow.
I think that was some of the most valuable stuff to me is about focusing in your strength and letting other people fill in the differences. Something I've been working on for years now, right? Like, because of course at the beginning, and I suspect it's not unique to me. At the beginning, I was trying to do everything, right? I was trying to do everything, and like you said, trying to, Bruce Lee talks about make your strength stronger, make your weaknesses cease to be a liability. I think that's good advice. But I was trying to make my weaknesses into strengths and always failing at it, right? Like and feeling that I have to do everything, and right, like so. I think that and I think it's one of the areas that I've personally improved in leadership the most over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But I still feel like I need much more work in it, right? Like because that's the challenge, right? Is figuring out how to
always get better.
Yeah, and how to get the right people in the right seats on the bus and help them be the best at like you said, at doing what their core strengths are. So I guess maybe one of the first skills is identifying people's core strengths.
Yeah.
Like,
And sometimes that's just, throw them into the fire, so to speak. And, obviously you can look at somebody's resume and see what they've done before, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's their calling, that's what their skills lend to the best.
Right.
Sometimes it's just trial and error. Hey, let me try this. Hand them a project and see how they run with it. And and if they do great with it, I've had employees that I hired for one thing, turned out that they really weren't so good at that. And then, okay, well, I've got another thing open. Rather than let the person go, let me see if they can do this.
Right.
And then switch their roles and find out that they're much better at the second thing than they were the first thing. And now, okay, great. I get to keep them as part of the company family.
Yes, sir.
And not have to let them go, but get a much more valued employee out of it.
Right. That's awesome. So what about, I have an idea what you might say on this, but I want to bring it up for everybody else that's listening, that because I'm sure that some young entrepreneur or somebody who's just getting started, when we started talking about developing a team around you, what's the first thing they think is, okay, but what, like I can't afford to get somebody else yet. And So like what are some of the ways that you can fill some of your shortcomings until you get to the point where you can start hiring other people and such?
So at first, you've got to really, like you said, you might not have the resources to get people that are experts in things. Um, but there's always, from what I've seen, groups of entrepreneurs, like-minded individuals that have expertise in different areas. And, entrepreneurs, I've always seen, like to help each other. And you like to, you see someone that reminds you of yourself 10, 15, 20 years ago, and you're like, hey, either I had a mentor, or hey, I wish I had a mentor when I was in that phase. So one thing that you can do is try to, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a group for CEOs, or CFOs, or marketing groups, or some kind of a trade association. Maybe you can join one of those and try to just talk to people. Try to find someone that sounds like they know what they're doing, that seems like they're successful, and try to get them to give you advice. Now, people aren't going to be willing to run with it and do it for you for free.
Right.
So sometimes you might just get advice, and sometimes you gotta, think, is that really good advice that I just got for free? You get what you pay for.
Yes, sir.
But trying to find somebody that, even if it's just somebody else that's going through that same struggle at that same moment, and you can kind of team together and learn from each other and bounce ideas off each other. Even just somebody that's a sounding board might have a good advice for you. But then, I would say things where when you're just starting out, you don't have the money to hire an accountant. You don't have the money, or at least on payroll, you don't have the money to hire an HR person. There are companies out there. I forgot the name of it, but I heard on the radio the other day where it was an HR thing, and it's $100 a month.
Right.
And they handle all your HR issues for you, and you can get live phone calls with them and everything. Go to Google, take a look. You might find that for other things. There might be accounting services, or ADP, or somebody else that you're not going to have to afford them as a full-time employee, but you can afford so to speak, an on-call IT service for a couple $100 a month. Or you can find HR services for $100 a month, or whatever, and start there with it. And who knows, you might find that you never really need to hire a full-time HR person. You can get away with, a couple of $100 a month, as opposed to a couple $1,000 a month.
Right. Great point. So leadership in general, now, like what we do here and what your experience, what would be some of your favorite lessons, either that you've learned through your journey, or that you just love teaching, or that anything, like, just share with the audience now a couple of your favorite leadership lessons.
So I'm not really sure on that one.
Not that you haven't already given a bunch, but like I have favorite ones. I just didn't know if you had some that are, and I'll let you talk to them, that kind of dragged into the family this time. Like, if there's anything that, or it could be something here that we've talked about that resonated in a way that has helped you in your business.
I would say, well, talking about something that we've been focusing on here is focus itself. And I've found that through COVID, we all kind of, at first we thought it was just going to be a couple of days, couple of weeks, couple of months, years, and now 2 years forward, everybody's business kind of slowed down, but now we're all starting to come back up. And I found that, over those past 2 years, I kind of lost a lot of my own focus. And I was so used to going from, 12-hour days and 10-hour days, and that's just how busy I was, to, kind of down to, 4-hour days, 5-hour days.
Mhm.
And then, kind of failed to get a lot of my focus back. But starting here in September, helped me regain sight of needing to have focus to, I guess, reinvigorate my business, reinvigorate everything that I'm doing. I need to zero in on my activities and go, okay, what really gets my business going? And I need to focus back on those activities, finding new business, kicking the tires and getting business that I used to have, calling them and finding out what I got to do to get them back to me. So I mean that would be one thing that being here has definitely helped me improve on, is just getting my focus back.
That's huge. That's awesome.
Yes. And I may have touched on it before, but I think with leadership, one of the things that I love is that you kind of get a joy out of helping others. And if you can help somebody on their path, on their journey, and show them, even though you're not on that path with them, you're not on that journey with them, you can show them tools in how to succeed for themselves. I always love hearing success stories of other entrepreneurs and other businessmen, men and women, seeing them succeed, and helping out in any which way I can. You know, I think, like for example, friends of ours, they are remind my wife and I of us 15 years ago.
Wow. Yeah.
And seeing their journey, they just recently opened up a business, and they're doing really well with it. And it's one of those things where, we try to be there for them and, offer them advice and,
That's
and,
great.
and see if there's anything that we can do to help them succeed, because, success loves success. You know.
Love it. Well, we certainly are grateful that you were willing to come and help us today. Come and
Anytime.
share your wisdom. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I asked. I'm so glad you said yes.
Thank you for having me.
And and by the way, we maybe we'll do this for another podcast, because I think this is a great place to wrap this one up. But
Yeah.
you also do an amazing job with Sammy. You're an amazing,
Thank you.
Amazing father. So that might be a whole nother discussion for another time. And I look forward to seeing both of you tonight or tomorrow. Tonight. All right.
And just touching on that briefly, if there's ever a time that you want Sammy to join us for a
Oh, that'd be
podcast,
great.
I think, if you're kind of focusing more on, say, family and what it's like to go through Krav Maga together as like parent-child and as a family together, that might be something cool where we can
That'd be
have
great.
her join us,
That'd be great.
and we could do a podcast, the three of us.
I think it's a great idea, and I think you've already alluded to one of the things that I would bring up, and is I've noticed how you're already really fostering her. You're really like nurturing is what I mean to say, nurturing the leadership in her and nurturing the like her own, like you always have her make the decisions and all those things. Like you're clearly well aware of one accord of the fact of how important it is to start them on leadership early.
Yes.
Right? Like I have no doubt she's going to be a great leader one day, and I look forward to that podcast.
Thank you.
It'll be awesome. Thank you, sir.
Have a great one.
All right, guys. Well, that was another. I hope that, like me, you'll be going back and listen to this one more than once and taking notes. Thank you again, Matt Kay.
Thank you for having me, everybody.
Buddy, we will see you next time.
Yay.